The meeting to order, and we're going to start by heading into executive session. So can I please have a motion to go to executive session?
I'll make a motion.
That executive session,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? The motion passes. We'll be back at about 6:30.
Good top fast.
house.
sorry, a little late. We're going to get started now. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We can all stand. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. I believe all members are here and accounted for. Yes. I take a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting, if everyone took a look at it.
I make motion.
Thank you, Cindy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is that Dawn?
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll take an approval of the minutes of the last meeting. That was December 9th, and executive session. Anyone have any comments on those meeting minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve them.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Adrian. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tricia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Announcements? Do we have any announcements today? Hearing none, we'll move on to correspondence. I don't have any correspondence. We have no unfinished business. Dr. Frame, we can move to the Red Devil recognitions.
Thank you, Mr. Baglioli. For those who may be with us for the first time tonight or haven't heard of Red Devil recognitions before, just over a year ago, our Board of Education had a conversation about trying to be more intentional about expressing appreciation and thanks for members of our school community that consistently go above and beyond. So one time per month, we award Red Devil recognitions, and we had engaged the school community in a conversation around characteristics that matter most here in Clarence, and there were 4 things that jumped off the charts. Those things were hard work, respect, compassion, and kindness, and so when people submit nominations, they highlight those different areas. And so part of our practice is calling the individual who's been nominated along with the person who nominated them to the front. We have certificates, we have mugs, we have pins. We'll have them stand in front of the screen. We'll snap their photos and we'll read for everyone what the nomination spoke about. And then we have someone who helps us with some communications from Erie One BOCES. We'll turn it into an article that we can share back with our school community. And we have a really special group of individuals tonight, I believe, all at the high school level, I think, in terms of looking at the Red Devil recognitions. And we'll just call people down one at a time. And again, want to make sure that we're purposeful about expressing thanks and expressing appreciation. So first up, we have Miles Cassetta. Miles is a school psychologist here in the high school and was nominated by Penny Connors, who's a social worker in our Family Support Center. So if both would come down, I'm going to move up to the screen with our board president, Mr. Baglioli. All right, so Miles, you're in the hot seat tonight. We'll have you stand right in the middle here. We'll have you scooch just a little bit. So as I'd mentioned before, Miles is a school psychologist in the high school, and here's what Penny had written in the nomination. Miles Cassetta is an exceptional school psychologist at Clarence Schools. He plays a multifaceted role within the district, serving as a psychologist, mental health support, confidant, and peer for both students and staff. With 3 years of experience at Clarence Schools, Miles is continuously exploring ways to build connections and develop comprehensive support systems for students. He has gone above and beyond to ensure that students have a strong support network both within the school and through collaboration with external community members. Miles is also known for his positive and approachable demeanor, which has made him a key figure in fostering strong relationships with students, parents, and peers alike. As one of the first faces that many see when entering the guidance office, his friendly presence immediately puts others at ease and creates an environment of trust and openness. His commitment to utilizing positivity as a tool for connection has been instrumental in strengthening the sense of community within the school. Through his strategic approach to creating tailored plans of support, Miles has become an invaluable resource for both students and staff. Clarence is fortunate to have him as a part of its team. For these reasons, I wholeheartedly recommend Miles for this recognition, and we agree. Congratulations, Miles, and thanks for everything you're doing to our school district. So we have a couple tokens of thanks, and then Mrs. Sutton is our resident photographer. She's going to grab a couple photographs, so we'll scooch in. And Miles, one last thing, if you wouldn't mind maybe starting here and heading down, just so other members of our board can express their thanks. But thank you for being here, and thank you for everything.
Of course.
Penny Connors had also written a really glowing nomination for Julie Mampy. Julie is an assistant principal in the high school who lives in the Southtowns and had come to school anticipating to be with us and thought that after school it would make sense for her to get on the road. So we'll make sure to extend that Red Devil recognition and share some of the information that Penny had written. So thank you, Penny, for those kind words about Julie Mampy. Next up, we'll be recognizing Mr. James George. Mr. George is a member of our high school social studies faculty, and Ethan Pinto, if Ethan is here tonight. So Ethan, come on up. So I do have to say that some of our favorite Red Devil recognitions are when students actually submit recommendations. Those in many ways mean the most. And so Ethan, it was really neat to see your recommendation. So we're going to share some of what you had written and then also talk about some of the things that colleagues had said about Mr. George. So Ethan is one of Mr. George's students and had written, "I'd like to nominate my U.S. history teacher, Mr. George, for the Red Devil Recognition Award. I believe Mr. George should receive this award because not only do I think he's an outstanding teacher, but a great person as well. Mr. George is kind and respectful of all the students in our class. He respects everyone's opinion. Mr. George is always willing to answer questions and help students when they ask. He's always trying to add a little to U.S. history by telling a few jokes. I'm so thankful to be in this class this year." And you said you had a couple jokes tonight. I'll hand you the mic. Oh, no. Okay, he's doing a 15-minute set before heading for home. I was talking with one of Mr. George's colleagues tonight, and so Mr. George teaches not only traditional social studies classes, but he also is an instructor in our RISE room, and he has a natural ability to connect with his students. And this particular individual was talking about walking in the halls and being outside Mr. George's classroom, just saying, this is somebody who's incredibly passionate about social studies, connecting with students, and you can hear it in his instruction. So it was about a year ago, I think, that you started as a member of the Red Devil faculty, and we are so excited that you're with us. So congratulations, Mr. George, and thank you, Ethan, for a wonderful nomination. So if we can offer him a round of... Scooching here. Great. And James, we'll have you start down here and just accept it. Congratulations. And last up, I believe we have our largest group of recipients ever. We have members of our middle and high school technology department. We have Mr. Urbanik, Mr. Turnowski, Mr. Maroney, Mr. Murray, Mr. Meal, Mr. Arnold, Mrs. Urbanik, and Mr. Wright. If you're here and would be willing to join us up front, along with Dr. Kristen Overholt. This is actually a test for Mr. Baglioli to see if he can get the correct certificates to the correct people here tonight. So I'll scooch to make room for a pretty incredible group of educators. So they were nominated by Dr. Overholt. Kristen is our assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. If you read our Friday messages that go out, you may have seen a note that this team had created some pretty impressive play structures for some of our youngest students here in Clarence, and would just encourage people to pay attention to our social media accounts and Friday message this week, because there's a video where you can see some images and get a deeper sense of what they were able to create. But first, I'm going to read from Dr. Overholt's nomination, and then I'll pause and I'll give her a chance if she would like to add anything in addition. So Kristen writes, "I'm honored to nominate the team of technology educators at Clarence Middle School and Clarence High School for their remarkable contributions to our district. These educators embody respect, hard work, kindness, and compassion in their daily efforts, particularly in their leadership of the K-Play Structure Project for our 4 elementary schools. Not only did they dedicate many hours to designing and building these structures, but they also engaged their students in the process, fostering valuable skills in design, problem solving, and collaboration. By involving their students, these educators turned the project into a hands-on learning experience, demonstrating respect for the students' potential and creating opportunities for authentic, real-world application of classroom concepts. The team's hard work and kindness were evident in every detail of the project, ensuring that the structures were safe, functional, and inspiring for our youngest learners. Their approach exemplifies compassion as they thoughtfully contributed to an initiative that will benefit the elementary students and their school communities for years to come. This team of educators has made a lasting impact not only through their craftsmanship, but also by empowering their students to contribute meaningfully. Their dedication and innovative approach make them truly deserving of this Red Devil recognition. Kristen, have we missed anything tonight that's worth noting?
The only thing I would add is that in my 22 years in the district, this certainly was one of the most impactful projects I have ever had the good fortune of leading, because this was truly about students giving back to students. So it was students at the middle and high school level, again, under the leadership of this incredible team before you, giving back to our kindergarten students, and every student who walks through the halls of our elementary schools are going to have the opportunity to work with these play structures. So thank you again, incredible job by this team.
Very good. For joining us around the and we'll see if we can get photos, and then we'll get certificates and mugs and all that sort of stuff. So James, we'll see if we can get a picture first, and then we'll hand things out. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll get right on that. Have you seen
All right, Mr. Baglioli, an incredible group of educators, and that's it for Red Devil recognitions this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Frame. We're going to move on to board reports. We have the district safety team meeting.
Okay, that would be me.
Thank you.
The safety meeting was held on December 10th at the Clarence High School Library. Some updates from that meeting are, in July of 2024, there was changes to the Commissioner's regulations dealing largely with emergency drills. Safety drills at are not to be conducted, these are some of the changes, are not to be conducted on the first week of school with staff given, until the staff is given instructions. Drills and training need to be conducted in a trauma and age-appropriate manner. With evacuation drills, New York State mandates if you are doing a drill, lockdown, shelter in place, hold in place, you have to announce it at the time of the drill. Notifications of the drills to parents are mandated 1 to 7 days before the drill. Drills need to be conducted at different days and times. 2 lockdown drills must be completed by 12/31 each year, and the annual emergency dismissal drill is still required. Some district-wide safety plan changes. We are including now the bus drivers and monitors as team members included information on behavioral assessment teams in the district-wide safety plan, and notification to parents about drills requires to be in the plan with specific language. The Sheriff's Department was represented at this meeting, and the district is very thankful for our strong partnership with the Sheriff's Department and all they do to keep everyone safe. We're thankful for that. The sheriffs have a community engagement team where their #1 goal is to make students and staff feel safe. They are here to educate and help and offer support whenever it's needed. And lastly, there were conversations requiring safety enhancements and interventions. We broke off into different groups, and the top couple of things that came out of each group were to add more SROs, at least one more per the elementaries. There's concerns about after-hours staffing of doors and special events, possible adding of panic buttons in the blue light system, and more awareness training for staff and faculty.
Thank you, Tricia. I have the Facilities Committee meeting.
I have that, James.
Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, and the Facility Committee's meeting was held on December 17th, and during that meeting, we talked about the capital project next steps. We also reviewed and reflected on the approval process, talked about how the communication process went, made some recommendations for postcards, public hearings, and newsletters before the public vote, and also some language clarity for the preference of using tax neutral as opposed to no tax impact when communicating about capital projects. There will be held, a kickoff meeting will be held. It will detail the project. Design work will take place between now and the end of 2024-2025 school year. The district will move quickly to schedule a meeting with our architects, construction manager, and accounting firm to finalize those next steps. Also included were some parking lot design revisions. We received feedback on both the middle school and the high school parking lots that needs to be reviewed. At the kickoff meeting, the group will identify opportunities for the planning committees to meet during the winter months about those parking lots. The playground design at the follow-up meetings. We have solid concepts in place for the Harris Hill Playground. We need to have committee meetings again this winter to finalize plans, as well as to find ways to involve student voice in the design. And after the kickoff meeting, the group will identify an opportunity for the committees to meet. The capital outlay reserve and repair recommendations. We had initially talked about redoing the Clarence Center parking lot during the summer of 2025 with a capital outlay project. However, after having it topped last summer, we are recommending completing needed work at the high school pool instead, because the work at the Clarence Center parking lot has been very successful. So the current recommendation is to address drain issues at the high school pool. And we could complete the drains, the grout, the cleaning, stainless steel with the $100,000 2025-2026 capital outlay, and $150K from the repair reserve. And then in order to use the repair reserve, the district would have to hold a public hearing followed by a Board of Ed resolution. And the recommendation is to hold a public hearing in January, then vote on resolution in February. We also discussed safety upgrades, reviewed information on potential safety upgrades, recommended installing panic buttons in our main entrance for the total of around $40K that would lock emergency doors and call first responders in the case of emergency. Recommended using funds from the repair reserve. The cost would be minimal because just over 70% would be returned in safety-related aid. Electric bus study. We detailed the process for electric bus study. We have held a kickoff meeting. From here, we will begin data collection, route analysis, concepts for charging station, etc. Anticipate having a final report by the beginning of June of 2025. And then there's also the maximum temperature in school building law. Governor Hochul recently signed a new law protecting students and staff from extreme heat in school buildings. It creates a definition of extreme heat conditions and requires that districts take action to relieve heat-related discomfort when classroom temperature reach 82 degrees. You have to turn off overhead lighting, pulling down shades, blinds, turning on fans, opening doors and windows, increase water breaks, things like that. It establishes 88 degrees as the maximum temperature in classrooms and support service spaces. It requires a plan for removal of students and staff from these spaces where it is practical for districts to do so. And we'll begin collecting data and working on a plan specific to Clarence for that. And with all that, our next meeting will be held on February 13th at 4 p.m.
Thank you, Cindy. I have the Finance Committee meeting.
Yes, and we just met a couple hours before our meeting here tonight. Mr. Fuchs, Mrs. Majera, Dr. Grepka, Dr. Frame, and myself were there. We reviewed the budget calendar for the upcoming 25-26 budget calendar. It's very early in the process. We will have to access more detailed information in the months to come. We discussed our organizational purposes as well as the level of excellence expected in our school community. We reviewed current enrollment numbers as well as information from our most recent school report card. We talked about the key recommendations from the Rockefeller report, and we'll review more specific budgetary information from different departments in the upcoming budget sessions. As far as current budget assumptions, we reviewed assumptions related to contractual commitments, the TRS, ERS rates, projected utility increase, healthcare expenses. The property tax cap is due to New York State by March 1st. The governor will be given her State of the State address tomorrow with preliminary aid runs to follow. We reviewed detailed information on foundation aid and different factors in the calculation. We discussed impact items and potential efficiencies. We had a preliminary conversation about items that needed to be considered when creating the proposed 25-26 spending plan. Some of the items we discussed were contractual commitments, school safety and SRO staffing, levels of needed related services, support for evening activities, and anticipated bus purchases. We had a roundtable discussion, and we have set our next meeting for 4:30 on Monday, March 17th.
Thank you, Dennis. Dawn Cesaf?
Nothing new to really report, other than we've started planning for the faculty basketball event, so keep your eyes open for that.
Thank you, Dawn. Parent-teacher organization meetings, I will start. I attended the Clarence Center PTO meeting last week. If you're not a member of the PTO and you're in a school, you should consider it. They do a lot for our kids. They raise a lot of money. They do a lot of things. It's a really great group of people, whatever school you're in. They're always looking for help, and I know Clarence Center is. I'm assuming the other schools are also. As far as Clarence Center, we talked about their fundraising. We talked about their book fair. We talked about the upcoming Western Night, which is one of my favorite things. I pulled the Bronco for a long time there, including last year again. We also talked about moving the fun run to the school day, so that the color run, so that all the kids can participate. So Clarence Center, they used to do it after school. They're moving it to during the day. But they are looking for additional help. I don't know if anyone hears from Clarence Center, but you should consider helping your PTOs out. Anyone else have any PTO meeting updates?
I'll just report that because the high school PTO only meets a couple of times a year, I decided to connect last week with the high school PTO Vice President Lisa Cooper, just to check in and see if they need anything, how things are going. And as always, they're looking for donations for the post-prom event. They want to remind people that as the year progresses more towards the end of the year, they will need lots of volunteers for all of the fun stuff that happens at the end of the year. And you don't have to be the parent of a high school student to chaperone post-prom, to chaperone prom and other events, especially because parents of children don't always want their parents at prom. They don't want to see them on prom night. So it is helpful for other members of the community to step up and help with that. They also continue to do things like a holiday cookie baking event for teachers and the other sorts of things that PTOs at the elementary school do. They just don't have quite as many meetings. So the next one is February 4th, and they're always looking for help.
Thank you, Adrian. Anybody else? Hearing none, we'll move on to Erie County Association School Board Representative reports.
Yes, on Tuesday, December 17th, members of the Erie County Association School Board's legislative team had met with Senator Galvin at his office, local office. We had a good discussion about a lot of upcoming issues with our state, Senate and Assembly that is about to get underway again for the year. We talked about the electric bus mandates, briefly reviewed the Rockefeller report, and we talked about, common concerns that we have. So we're trying to get ahead of meeting with our representatives before the session starts and not, during or after. So that was a good discussion.
Thank you, Dennis. Hearing no more reports, I'll move to the superintendent's report. Dr. Frame?
Thank you, Mr. Baglioli. We have 4 different reports tonight, and if you're all right with it, I'd love to switch the order of the first 2. We were really lucky as a Board of Education to be able to start our day with the Harris Hill Huskies this morning, and we have a formal report tonight. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Boccaccio. So we'll hear from the Harris Hill team, and then we'll have our public hearing, a budget update, and a report from our student body representative.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having us here. We are super excited that we got to host our Board of Education in our district office today at Harris Hill. And today was just an exciting day that I think boils down to one thing, and that's leadership. So we have some amazing leaders, whether they're teacher leaders, our student leaders, and today started out with Mrs. Gordon's leaders in her 12-1-1. I'm doing everything to prepare for a breakfast for our Board of Education, from planning the menu, preparing the food, creating placemats, serving our Board of Education, and really putting some of those life skills to use that they've been working so hard on each and every day. So that was very exciting for us. We got to watch our Husky Herald, and we got to say our Husky Pledge, which is what we live and breathe each and every day. And then finally, our top dogs got to do a little bit of a question and answer with our Board of Education and a tour throughout our school. So without further ado, we're going to turn it over to our leaders. Tonight we have Marissa DeVoe, our music teacher, with us. We have Mrs. DeRenzo, our kindergarten teacher, and Mrs. Koning-Pulley with us. So we're super excited and thankful to the Board of Education for supporting our student leadership coordinators. So we'll turn it over to them and to our top dogs. And to our families, thank you for bringing them.
Hello everyone, I'm Caitlin DeRenzo, and I want to introduce to you the top dogs, and these will be our MCs for the evening, and they're going to start us off with our Husky Pledge.
I am a husky, shy and true. I will have the back of my whole crew. Today I pledge to do my best, to learn, to lead, and all the rest. Always kind and affirming, that's me. Inclusive of all, that's how it must be. But we not in school, it is our way. And now it's time to start our day. I am a husky, the pack and not stray. And here is what we have to say.
Throughout our presentation, top dogs will answer the question, what does it mean to be a husky? Starting with the letter H is Delaney and Lauren.
H stands for happiness. When you walk into our school, you see the Husky Pledge on the wall. This year, we got a new wall wrap with parts of the pledge from the PTO. Thank you so much, Harris Hill PTO.
You are greeted with a smile from your teacher and classmates. The teachers and staff really do their best to make Harris Hill fun.
Education is a science, but teaching is an art. The teachers at Harris Hill know that we are teaching the curriculum, doing the skill groups, giving common assessments, but school and teaching is so much more than that. We strive at Harris Hill to make sure every student wants to come to school. Let's listen to Ty and Lucy share what makes them excited to come to school.
I love coming to play with my friends at recess and working with my teachers to read cool books.
I like coming to school to see my friends and teachers every day and earning Husky Paws to earn cool rewards as a school.
What does it mean to be a Husky?
You stand for united. Our pledge says we will have the back of our whole crew. We work as a team within our classrooms, grade levels, and the entire school.
The whole school works together to earn Husky Paws for living by our pledge. If we succeed and fill up the poster, we will get a reward. We are a we, not a me school.
When students feel seen, heard, and valued, they are more likely to thrive in an environment where they know they belong. One of the ways we foster a healthy and positive environment is through earning Husky Paws by working as a team through all grade levels. Austin and Maddie are going to tell you more about this.
The school is divided into 4 teams with special area teachers as color captains. The teams are working together to earn Husky Paw stickers by living the Husky Pledge.
To earn incentives, we fill various Husky-related pictures as a team. Some of the incentives we earned this year are the silent disco party, a stuffed animal sleepover, an oobleck party. Right now, we are working towards a popcorn party.
The winning color team with the most Husky Paw stickers gets an extra add-on like glow sticks at the silent disco party, extra time at Oblak, an accessory at the stuffy sleepover, and a juice box at the popcorn party.
By working together for a common goal, it creates a fun, positive, and motivating learning environment.
We are very lucky to have Officer Jill Pizzito join our pack this year. Before she discusses school-wide safety, let's give her a big husky howl. Ready?
Thank you. I was not expecting that. I hear it in the school all the time. I appreciate being here. I obviously know I'm at Harris Hill with all of you as well as Ledgeview. What I've done since I've been there is try to make a visual presence every day, not only for what's inside the school, for the people outside of school. Working on making a relationship with the staff, with the students, and all the families that come to our school. Also in the process, I'm working on things such as making sure we have locked doors everywhere. We have learned that locked doors, we don't have intruders who breach locked doors, so that's such a main focus that we focus on every day. And another thing that I do is focus on the camera system we have. We look at what we have, how well it can be used, and I'm kind of constantly looking to see if I can change that or make adaptations or things we can make recommendations to the board so we can improve its safety for all the schools in our district. Thank you. I'm proud to be part of Clarence.
S stands for safe. We feel safe in our school because we feel included. Our school focuses on inclusivity and making sure that everyone feels safe.
We also have a resource officer, Officer Pizzino, who is constantly walking around the inside and outside of our school, making sure the building is safe.
Communication is the most important skill any leader can possess. Harris Hill prides themselves on consistent and effective communication. Mr. Boccaccio sends out weekly updates to staff. Parent Square is used to communicate with families, and Gabby and Anna will discuss how we communicate with students through the Husky Herald News.
One of the ways that we communicate with our peers in the building is through our Husky Herald announcements. 4th and 5th grade students record, edit, and produce morning announcements every day with Mr. Boccaccio that classrooms then watch every morning.
One thing that we did as Top Dogs this year is created digital and paper posters about the Mitten Tree, which was a collection of winter gear for the Go To Girls organization. We hung posters around the school, shared digital posters on Parent Square, and talked about this on the Husky Herald.
Culturally responsive teaching is about recognizing the cultural backgrounds of students, respecting and validating their experiences, and adapting teaching to support the diverse ways in which they learn. All right, stand up. Ready? 1, 2, and go.
Harris Hill Huskies, we stand strong. Top dogs all day, we can't
We lead by the blood, and that's the way we rise.
On the raft, you see the fire in our eyes.
We're doing our best, we're pushing to the top. No one gets left behind, we'll never stop.
You and your family and your parents.
Things feel good, the whole world feels new.
We've got each other's backs, that's how we roll.
Singing together, making us whole.
When you're part of the group, you know it's true.
We do our best in everything that we do.
Graziana and Paul. Graziana and Paul are going to present letter K.
K is for kindness. We Huskies go out of our way to make everyone feel welcomed and loved.
We strive to be kind and compassionate in everything we do.
When we focus on the whole student, we ensure that every aspect of their development is nurtured. One way the kindergarten team takes a holistic approach to support student success is to get students and families in the building often. We have monthly parent engagement opportunities for families to come into the classroom, such as holidays parties, Friendsgiving, gingerbread house decorating, a Valentine's Day breakfast, and kindergarten celebration. Emma, Lauren, and Delaney will share some other ways Harris Hill students support student success through a holistic approach.
This year will be our third annual Night of the Arts. This night features the art show led by Mr. Gretsch, our musical production directed by Mrs. DeVoe, and an ice cream social provided by our Harris Hill PTO.
Students work hard with Mr. D and Mrs. Metz to get ready for the annual track meet where all elementary school students come together for some friendly competition.
Y stands for yes. Being a Husky means saying yes to a friend that asks you to play with them. Trying your best when you are faced with a difficult situation or assignment. Saying yes to trying something new. Saying yes to a positive mindset.
What does it mean to be a top dog?
Top Dog students, leaders in grades 3 to 5 work together to have a positive impact on students, staff, families, and community, and support school events. Students plan, implement, and faculties work with the Clarence community too.
What are some events that we planned so far this year?
In November, we planned the entry and spoke about the Veterans Day ceremony.
In December, we spoke at the Holiday Sing about the cultural meaning of each song.
This month we are working on organizing the food drive to benefit the Clarence Food Pantry.
In February, we are planning our first ever Harris Hill Valentine's Day dance.
In March, we are reinventing bedtime and books, where students will collaborate with classroom teachers to transform their rooms for an immersive read-aloud experience.
In April, we will organize a school-wide cleanup for Earth Day.
To wrap up our year in May, we will help organize our school coloring run and recognize our hardworking teachers for Teacher Appreciation Week.
H-U-S-K-Y. We have Husky pride. Ow.
Very cool. Before we let folks go, if we could just pause for one last round of applause for this team of leaders. And from members of our Board of Education, before we let this team head for home to finish up homework and maybe have dinner, are there any questions or comments for this group tonight? So I'll turn it over to members of our board.
Well,
Just thank you for this morning. Breakfast was fantastic.
And I'm sorry I couldn't be there this morning, so I'm really, really excited to hear all of your possum information tonight. And I heard that I missed out on some fruit top pancakes, so I'm really bummed about that. Sorry about that. But thank you for sharing with us tonight. Thank you.
You guys were amazing hosts this morning. It was just so much fun. Very impressive.
And thank you for all the questions.
If we were your parents sitting behind you, we'd be bursting with pride. You did such a great job tonight and today. You make us proud. We have just over 4,000 students in our school community, and the fact that you were selected to be student leaders from Harris Hill says a lot about you, that people must see a ton of potential and something special in you, and that was on display tonight. So we're super proud of you. Thanks for doing a great job tonight. Make sure your parents drive safely home as it's snowing a little bit out there, and thank you again for a great day. We'll give you one last round of applause.
Great job, great job, great job, great job. You too. Great job. Great job, Mr. B. See you later. Great job. Great job. Great job, great job. Great job, great job. All right, we'll see you soon. Take care. Great job. All right, take care. Have a good night. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Great job, everybody. Nice job.
All right.
Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Frame.
Next up, so we swapped on the agenda S1 for S2, so that was our Harris Hill update. So we're going to pop back to S1, which is a public hearing on a repair reserve. So this is something that Dr. Grupka was talking about with our facilities committee. They had mentioned it briefly during a report section tonight. Dr. Grupka is going to present some information, pause to see if members of our Board of Education or members of our public have any questions or comments. If people do after the meeting, they should feel free to reach out to myself or Dr. Grupka to pass that information along. And then if there are no changes, we would anticipate a vote in February. So I'll turn things over to Dr. Grupka.
Thank you. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about our repair reserve, what it is, how we plan on using it, and we can talk a little bit about where we stand with our repair reserve in general. So repair reserve is established by a resolution of the Board of Education, and this board had authorized us to create a repair reserve. You can appropriate money from a repair reserve subject to a public hearing with 5 days notice. We put the notice out. Today is our hearing date. At least one half of the expenditures must be replaced the year following the use of the reserve. The other half must be reappropriated the year after. Any interest earnings that are accrued in the reserve must be deposited back into that reserve. So over time, we had put some funds away into this repair reserve. We started in 2022 with $1.2 million roughly. That money was set aside with the intention of eventually replacing our turf field. We put a little bit more away in June of 23 and some in June of 24. With interest right now, we're around $3.2 million, well, almost 3.3 in our repair reserve. So we do have some funds set aside to do some work should we need it. And this is where we are right now. So currently, we're recommending some upgrades with our repair reserve. We're looking at upgraded safety systems. One of the things that came out of our safety team meeting was an initiative to install panic buttons, which include strobe lighting in each of our buildings. So these would be at the main entrances and in the principals' or main secretaries' main offices. One at every elementary, one at the middle school entrance, and 2 at the high school because we do use more than one entrance there. These would be covered using a state contracted vendor. They are partially reimbursable for state aid through the Safe Funds Act, which allows us to get aid back on these. It would be whatever our building rate ratio is, which I think is 72.6%, plus an additional 10% because it is a safety initiative. And then in addition to that, there would be some cost to support the technology piece of it, so about $2,500 annually, just to support the fees and licensing for upgrade, the phone calling systems. So basically, if you hit one of these panic buttons, strobe lights will go off, all of the emergency doors will close, and it will make an automatic call into our fire and safety systems, police, local law enforcement. The second recommendation we'd like to make, we talked a little during our facilities committee about some repairs that needed to occur at our pool. Our high school pool, we had planned on using $100,000 to drain the pool, regrout it, and then fill it back up. When we looked at what needed to be done, we recognized that to get up to safety code, we do need to replace the center drains in the pool. I put in there, it's in compliance with the Virginia Graham-Baker Act. If you remember many, many years ago, and maybe you don't remember this, there was a student who had their hair caught in the drain of the pool. This will upgrade those systems to a non-entrapment drain. It's work that really should be done while we have the pool empty. There's no reason to not do it. So this would be using $160,000 of that. Again, it would be reimbursable through the state, but it will bring that pool back up to code. I do want to say that this is why we keep repair reserve. It's for emergencies, it's for when things come up that we really haven't thought about, and it's for upgrading our systems and creating safer schools for our children. So that work will be done probably between May 1st and June 30th. This is also work that can be done through a cooperative bid. And you'll see later on in my section of the board agenda, I'm asking for approval of some cooperative bidding agencies. One of those actually does have some pool work with Watson, who is one of the biggest vendors in the country in terms of school pools work. So, questions?
When you're talking about the automatic locking doors, are you talking about the ones like inside internally as well, like the long hallways?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Yes, it would be the safety doors, but not classroom doors.
Okay.
It would hook up to the fire system, so any door that would close when a fire alarm would be pushed would also close.
Okay, no, I just wanted to clarify.
And I have a quick question then too. So when you're saying that the panic buttons are at the main doors, are they going to be like, for instance, at the elementary, at the door monitors offices?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yes, there'll be one in the door monitor's office and one in the main office at the elementaries.
Gotcha.
So they will have one in each. And then at the high school, there will be one at the front door, one at the main office, and one at the back at the athletic.
Dr. Grupka, both of these are reimbursable, right? Certain
Yes.
percentage? What's that
Yes.
rate again?
72.6.
Plus it's an extra 10% for the safety.
Not on the pool.
Not in the pool, I know, for
But
the
yes, but
for the
on
panic button.
the panic buttons, yes.
So almost 82% of that's being reimbursed to us after we
Yes,
spend it.
correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Grupka. And as we had talked about before, we anticipate having a resolution, an item on the board agenda for our February meeting. Next up, under S3 is a budget planning update. We have a series of these as we move further into the budgeting process this year. For anyone who has been a member of the Board of Education for a period of time, you know that the creation of a school budget is not a small or an easy task. It is a multi-month process. If you're someone who follows our Board of Education meetings, you'll notice a focus on program, particularly the first half of the year, and an increased emphasis on finances and budget development for the second half of the year as we're talking about a proposed spending plan. I had mentioned before we have a series of these budget hearings over the subsequent months in winter and early spring. You'll notice that they'll get longer and more specific as we go. So the first budget update tonight is generally the shortest of the bunch, but I would say for anyone who has questions or comments to make sure that we're engaged in that dialogue as we go. So you will notice in your slide deck this evening an agenda for some preliminary comments that I'll make this evening to sort of guide our conversation. And the first thing that we always want to do is pause to just acknowledge and recognize our organizational purpose. And for us, that's our mission statement. So you can see that printed in front of us tonight, although as we were listening to our presentation from our Harris Hill Huskies, I was sort of thinking, that's what it's about. We're a place for kids, and we need to make sure that as they're going through their school experience here in Clarence, they have the opportunities and they have the support that they need in order to excel. So before we start talking dollars and cents and aid ratios and all that sort of stuff, important for us to acknowledge that that's what it's about. We're here for kids and making sure that good things are happening for them. So talking about our students, we are fortunate here in Clarence that when we talk about our enrollment, we are not only stable, but we are increasing slightly. That is not the story of public education and community trends in New York State, but we're in a place that continues to grow from year to year. We don't anticipate a dramatic spike with regard to student enrollment, but we do project a slight increase in recent years. You can see that our enrollment is just over 4,000 students now. From our most recent school report card, you can see parts of our demographic profile. You can see that about 1% of our ELL students are English as a new language students here in Clarence. Something that is unique with regard to our ELL population is that they come from all corners of the world. We don't have one pocket of students from one particular country, but we have more than 40 different languages that are spoken in Clarence, and that's a really rich tapestry that's created. It also is a challenge with regard to supporting the unique needs that our students have. You can see that about 14% of our students are special education students with disabilities, which is a pretty typical percentage that you would see in public schools across New York State. And then with regard to economically disadvantaged students, about 19%. So you can see some of the needs and some of the different things that we have to support in our school community. And again, enrollment projections, we don't anticipate a significant spike in coming years, but we do anticipate somewhat of an increase. It's also important for us to recognize that as we put together a proposed spending plan, we want to make sure that we're supporting opportunities for kids, we're supporting our mission statement. We also want to acknowledge the fact that Clarence has a really rich tradition in terms of excellence, in terms of services, in terms of opportunities for students, and have just listed some things here and would say by any metric or measure, Clarence has over its history established itself as a destination district in Western New York. Whether you're talking about academic achievement, you're talking about the arts, you're talking about the athletics, we've got incredible kids and they're doing really, really incredible things in our school community. So when we think about a spending plan, we want to make sure that this continues, and when you look at any high-performing organization, it's not just continuing this very proud tradition, but we're finding ways to enhance it and to build on what has been created over a point in time. We'd had a presentation from our Finance Committee this evening, and our budget calendar and timeline was referenced. Again, you'll see that we're in some ways beginning our formal report out of that process tonight with our first budget session. And you can see where we're headed as we work our way into May, and we culminate with a proposed spending plan that'll go out to the Clarence community, hopefully for their support and approval. As we sit here tonight, it is important to recognize what are some of the assumptions and key budget drivers that we should be aware of what do we need to be thinking about as we move further into our budget development process, and then what are some of the changes that we want to make sure we're aware of. So when we talk about our budget development, over 4,000 students, over 700 full or part-time staff members. We have 6 different school buildings and a transportation facility. It is a complex endeavor putting together a spending plan. There are certain things always that we want to have on our radar as we finalize things moving closer to May. And here are a couple of those things here tonight. One is we always want to be mindful of our collective bargaining agreements. They can be helpful tools when we come to putting together a budget for upcoming years. They allow us to be very specific with regard to what some of our costs will be. It's pretty typical that at any point in time we may have 1 or 2 collective bargaining agreements that we're in the process of negotiating and finalizing, and so we want to be aware of that dynamic as we move through a budget process. We have to remember that whether we're talking about teachers and administrators or support staff members, there are obligations that exist with the teacher's retirement system, the employee retirement system, and you can see projected percentages here. So for example, when we look at the ERS system for our support staff members, an increase of 15.2 to 16.5%. So there's an increase this coming year. And then for our TRS obligation, a slight decrease from 10.2% to 10%. Important for us to recognize, though, that that is a percentage paid on salary. So where the percentage can go up or down, for us it really is looking at what's the amount that's contributed to salary and how does that percentage interplay with it. For us, important to note utility costs that we're experiencing not just as individuals outside of our school community, but certainly here in the school district. Right now, we're seeing a projected natural gas increase of approximately 30%, and the reason for that is simple supply and demand. When we look at the temperatures and the extreme weather that has been experienced across the country, when we see the need for natural gas grow up, we'll also see the price increase. And then for electric, we're seeing a 20% increase or an anticipated 20% increase, and a lot of that has to do with developing needed infrastructure. So those are significant drivers and assumptions that we need to be aware of. We also need to recognize that as we talk here tonight, we're talking about a budget that would kick in July 1st. Weather and fuel costs don't care about what our budget timeline is, and so these increases have already started for us here in Clarence. As we think about educational programming for next year, it's important for us to recognize that our needs with regard to special education and our English as a new language student population, they're constantly changing, and we need to make sure that at any particular point in time, we may need to add or provide support in different ways for our students. And so this is an area in the budget that can change very, very quickly, and we'll have to keep a close eye on that. And then being mindful of healthcare. We're anticipating right now a 3% increase for next year, which actually is really good when we think about the past couple years and we think about industry norms, and a 16% anticipated increase with regard to our stop loss. So that is insurance for our insurance. And that's significant, obviously, as we look at an anticipated 16% at this point in time. With regard to our revenue estimates, so we had just spoken about where we may anticipate spending some of our predicted resources for next year and some of the things that we need to keep an eye on. It's also important for us to focus on the revenue side of the budget where we anticipate resources coming from. We are early in that process now. The two most important sources of revenue for us as a school district are, number one, our school property tax base, which is locally levied. The property tax cap is due to New York State by March 1, which was reported earlier on at a Finance Committee report. So we have just about all the different numbers that we need to finalize that, but not all of them. So we'll be narrowing and fine-tuning that number as we get ready to send that to the state or submit that to the state by February 1st. And then also aware of aids that come to Clarence, the most important being foundation aid, and then other expense-driven aid. So for people who may not be as familiar with how aid works in New York State, foundation aid is a basic aid that New York State would say should be pushed out to all school districts, and it should cover that basic level of what it takes to educate a student in a New York State public school. It is a really, really complicated formula. We're going to talk about a research study that was set up over the past year to better understand that formula and make some recommendations. But for us, we don't have a sense of what that projected amount will be yet. The governor will give her State of the State address tomorrow, and then we do anticipate having her runs later on in the week. And for anybody who reads one of the newspaper articles that's sure to follow, it's important to remember that that is a first step at the state level. It will be followed by a one-house budget from the Assembly and the Senate, and at a certain point they'll come up with an approved budget, hopefully by April 1st, but that is in many ways a political process as well as an objective numbers-driven process. So there's our local property tax levy, there's our anticipated aids from New York State. We don't anticipate any significant changes with regard to Erie County sales tax, and then we do anticipate using $2.5 million of appropriated fund balance, which is allocating monies from our current year's budget to our budget for next year. I had mentioned just a moment ago some work that was done with the foundation aid formula that exists in New York State. For people who have served on a board or familiar with how schools are funded, the foundation aid formula is incredibly complex, and it should be directing money to schools in a way that is equitable and appropriate to provide education for students. Most people who are involved in the K-12 space recognize that the foundation aid formula is not only very complex, it's also flawed and outdated. And so just a little bit under a year ago, the governor had asked the Rockefeller Institute to conduct a study and make a series of recommendations that could be used with the foundation aid formula in New York State. We're not going to go over all of them tonight. We would have to order pizzas and really make this a longer meeting. But I did want to highlight just a couple things that are worth noting. So the Rockefeller Foundation aid study involved 5 different hearings around New York State. We appreciate the fact that Dr. Grupka was one of the individuals in Western New York who signed up to advocate and make a statement on behalf not just of Clarence, but on behalf of students and staff members in this corner of the world. So they've taken all this information, authored a report. We're unsure at this part in terms of how the governor's viewing it, how the Senate and how the Assembly are viewing it. Most professional organizations are saying it really is a great place to start the conversation, that changes are needed with regard to the foundation aid formula, but they need to be thoughtful, they need to be comprehensive, and they need to have enough runway where they're not putting students and schools in a really rough position. So there are a number of recommendations that came out of this Rockefeller report. I'm going to focus for the most part on the first 2 because those are a pair of recommendations that could potentially have an impact on us here in Clarence. In New York State, when they have run the foundation aid formula, they have used poverty data, poverty metrics that are outdated. So they're using data that is 10 years old in New York State. And so one of the recommendations is to use federal metrics, more current information when they're letting the foundation aid formula run. When New York State looks at how high need a district is or low need a district is, they look really at 2 different factors. One is that they will look at income in a district and they'll look at property value, and they'll average those together into what's called a combined wealth ratio. And when we look at Clarence as a community, what we have seen over the past 10 years is a higher combined wealth ratio. So in the state's eyes, they'll see Clarence as a lower needs district than many school districts around the state, and one that has become lower in terms of need over the past decade. So when the state says, how do we most equitably distribute funds, us here in Clarence, we're a little bit nervous that they'll look at our school community and say we're not as high needs as some places and wouldn't direct as high of levels in terms of foundation aid. So looking at trends over the past 10 years. The second one is the recommendation to eliminate what's called a save harmless. So save harmless in terms of school funding is the approach in practice where you'd say, you know what, if a school district received $10 million, for example, in foundation aid one year, they would never expect to receive less in the coming year. And so that is something that the recommendation has been put forward, that we really shouldn't have a save harmless provision. There may be times, if it's declining enrollment or less need, where that may not be appropriate. So those are 2 things for us that make us a little bit more nervous and wanting to pay special attention as to see how these different recommendations move forward in terms of how they view Clarence, and the fact that last year the state saw us as fully funded, so we received the same amount of foundation aid last year as we did the year before, and so unsure about what the aid runs will say as we move forward in anticipation for 2025, 2026. So I know that's quick. I know it's a lot of information. I also want to acknowledge that we're early on in the reporting out conversation process, but I'll pause to see if there are questions or comments from members of our Board of Education for either myself or Dr. Grubka. All right, thank you everyone. And last report tonight is Olivia Collins, our student representative to the Board of Education.
I hope everyone's winter break went great. Before the students left for the break, many things were happening in the district and in the high school. So to start off the break, Clarence High School Student Council hosted their Winter Spirit Week. And that was a great way to bring everyone together. A lot of people dressed up, great time. And then next I want to talk about the lemonade stands. I had the pleasure of working on the lemonade stands at the high school with the engineering department. So the engineering department here at the high school took on the responsibility of finishing the lemonade stands once done by the middle school students. High school students of various classes came together during their respective periods to work on finishing these stands for the kindergarten classes here at Clarence for all elementary schools. Each stand had a personalized school mascot logo, and when they were complete, the students who worked on them loaded a delivery truck with the stands and said farewell to them. I had the opportunity to place the Clarence Center Cheetah Paw on the original stand with 5 other kindergartner students. This project goes to show how we are all a family, whether we are seniors or kindergartners. And even in the tech classes, we each got little thank you notes written by the kindergartners, and those were so cute. And it warmed my heart because I remember when I was in kindergarten. The second thing I want to talk about was the Women in STEM seminar. So this was held the day before break. For the seminar, it was held in the lecture hall, and 7 alumni of Clarence came to speak about their experiences as women in STEM. Junior and senior female students were given the opportunity to attend this event and ask questions. There were so many inspiring stories told by all of the panel and so much insight regarding STEM-related fields. I went to it last year, and it's already grown from 1 year, and it was truly a great experience to be a part of. And with the seminar, they added a course fair for the sophomores and the freshmen, where in the library, some STEM classes at our high school were showing what they have and giving other young girls opportunities to see what we have at the high school. The senior student council is preparing for their winter dance, which is scheduled to happen on February 8th, and this is the reschedule from the other winter dance that was supposed to happen in December. There's an orchestra concert coming up this week with the high school orchestra, and to come in close with the semester, next week is midterm week, so there's lots of students studying away for those. For the middle school hosted the spelling bee, where students at the middle school tested their spelling, and this competition was compiled to 29 students. And also with the middle school, they are putting on their musical, The Little Mermaid, and they're rehearsing and perfecting their craft to be able to be on stage for the first week of February. For the elementary school, we have lots of concerts coming up. Ledgeview had their winter concert last week, which included Ledgeview's choruses and the Harris Hill and Ledgeview Band. Clarence Center is having their concert this coming up week with their chorus and their band with Sheridan Hill. Harris Hill is having theirs next week as well, or next week, with their choruses and orchestra. And Sheridan Hill will have theirs next week, last week of January, with their choruses and orchestra as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. And that's it, Mr. Baglioli, for Superintendent's report tonight.
Thank you. Public comment? Do we have any public comment? No? Hearing none? Going once? Going twice? Hearing none? We will move on to finance. Dr. Grubka?
Thank you. Today I'm going to ask for approval of the November financial reports along with the schedule of bills and check warrant. An approval of donation to Clarence Center Elementary of 2 flat-screen TVs totaling $1,196 from Mr. Schindler. These were purchased as part of a safety initiative. You'll see a resolution to approve participation in cooperative purchasing alliances. These are pre-approved purchasing contracts that have already been pre-bid. We are allowed to purchase from them because it meets the state requirements for bidding. On F5, you'll see a resolution to approve BOCES collaboratives to support data privacy agreements. This allows us to send any agreements into BOCES for D2 certification, so they will provide us support with that. F6 is approval of a transportation contract, and F7 is approval of the vote results for the capital project. We had 467 voters, 403 yes, 64 no.
Have any questions or comments on items F1 through F7? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve items F1 through F7.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Cindy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Mr. Michelle, personnel.
For instructional this evening, we have 1 resignation, 2 requests for leaves of absence, a prior appointment for a home instructor, appointments this evening, a regular substitute at Sheridan Hill, some mentors for our substitutes that are continuing on throughout this school year, approval to add girls modified flag football, and also a high school advisor. P5 is presentation compensation, and P6, the changes to our substitute list.
Do I have any questions or comments for items P1 through P6? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve items P1 through P6.
I'll make a motion, James.
Thank you, Dawn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tricia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Mr. Michelle, non-instructional.
Non-instructional, we have 2 terminations, 3 resignations, of one of which is for retirement, so thank you, Ms. Szyminski, for 28 years of service to the district. P9 are changes in status for aides to be able to support students in after-school activities. 1 leave of absence. Prior appointments this month were 2 bus drivers and some substitute teacher aides. P12 for appointments, we have a principal clerk at the district office, a teacher aide, and a high school monitor. P13 is just notification of the change in the minimum wage for any of our workers, but specifically it's really for our lifeguard population, a lot of our students that do either lifeguarding or if they support our auditoriums. And P14 is changes to our substitute list.
Any comments or questions for items P7 through P14? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve items P7 through P12 and item P14.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Cindy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Adrian. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Special needs, Ms. Shuska?
The Committee on Special Education met for 14 days and is asking for approval on the recommended services for 34 students. The Committee on Preschool Special Education met for 8 days and is asking for approval on the recommended services for 23 students.
Thank you, Ms. Shuska. Any questions or comments on items S1 to S2? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve items S1 and S2.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Dennis. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Board Development and Policy, Dr. Frame?
2 different items. The first one is B1, a field trip for our varsity hockey team to Salmon River, New York. They tend to take a field trip or 2, an overnight field trip or 2 on an annual basis. And then B2 involves our annual Board of Education goals. The text and content of the goals is what was reviewed as an informational item a month ago. The only change has been removing the date for 1-year goals. And I think if you look at the content as the team has talked about, they are appropriate and robust goals and will likely extend beyond the winter and spring part of this year. So they are on as an action item this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Frame. Any questions on B1 and B2? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve items B1 and B2? Thank you, Dawn. Do I have a second? Thank you, Adrian. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Next to the Committee of the Whole items, the schedule of upcoming meetings. Our next meeting is February 10th. If you're interested in seeing what goes on the 10th, you should show up. And upcoming events, that's in the agenda we have. I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Tricia. Do I have a second?
Make a second.
Thank you, Dennis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much for coming.